Premier Heating and Air has rebates on new units starting at $1,000. Indoor air quality products are free with the purchase of a new unit, and all types of financing are available for new units and for repairs. Premier Heating and Air, a locally owned and operated company. Log on to dublin.premierishere.com or call 478-300-2633. And for a limited time only, enjoy a one-time exclusive offer for new customers with our dispatch fee waived on your next repair. So call or log on today. Premier is here.
Hi, my name is Liz Green. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Fairview Park Hospital, and I'm glad to be here with Dr. Jenkins. He is one of our cardiologists here, and we are going to be talking about stress and the effect that it has on the heart. So thank you for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Dr. Jenkins, tell me a little bit about your education, where you're from originally, and how long you've been at Fairview.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Carrollton, Georgia. It's like 40 minutes outside of Atlanta. And then I did my med school at Ross University, my residency at Florida State University in Sarasota, Florida. I did my general cardiology fellowship in New Orleans at Ochsner University, Ochsner Medical Center. And then I did my interventional cardiology fellowship at Montefiore up in the Bronx, New York. So circle back around, I wanted to come back home because there's no place like home. So I wanted to come back to be close to where I grew up, but somewhere where I feel like I can have a really profound impact on the community.
Right, and in rural health, I know doctors, a lot of times you have, big cities are attractive, but rural health, you really get to see the impact that you have because of the communities that you're in.
Absolutely.
And being a main access to healthcare.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, so how long have you been at Fairview?
So I started in Fairview July of last year.
Okay, how's it been so far?
It's been good. Everyone's super nice. It's really busy, but we get to help a lot of people, a lot of patients. And so everyone here is super welcoming, like I said, super nice. The first day I started, I hit the ground running, so it hasn't stopped since.
So tell me a little bit about the procedures you do here at Fairview, what we have to offer.
Absolutely. So we do procedures called left heart catheterizations. This is where we go in the arteries. So I usually try to use the artery of the wrist, and sometimes use the artery in the leg. And we put catheters up to your heart, and we look at your heart arteries to see if there's any blockages that we can open up to help improve symptoms, or in some cases emergencies, when someone's having a massive heart attack. Other times we do it to improve heart function, So that's one thing. Other procedures are, for example, we do called pulmonary thrombectomies for patients that have blood clots in their lungs. That's just a fancy term for taking out the blood clot in the lung. We do those procedures, and usually those patients are pretty on the sicker end, but we take care of those patients as well. And then, of course, other procedures that we do here that I do is, like I work on the hearts and open up blockages in the heart, also open up blockages in the legs. Okay. So I work on hearts, lungs, and legs.
Gotcha. So you're a little bit of everything.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So.
And I'm sure a lot of those patients come through the ER. So can you talk about what type of patients you see come through that access, like what they might be experiencing when they get to you?
Absolutely. So the great majority of patients that will come in will have chest pain, if we're speaking of like blockages in the heart arteries. Sometimes they can have just some pressure or some tightness, Usually it'll get worse on exertion whenever they go up a flight of stairs or go for a walk. They start noticing this chest pain. Occasionally it'll be a sudden kind of episode of chest pain that could be one of those emerging cases. But that's usually the typical presentation. Other times you may see patients that have shortness of breath or just nausea, or maybe some what we call epigastric or stomach pain, So every patient is different, and there's no two patients that are just alike.
I guess that's what can be scary about the heart, is that it can present in a way that you would never expect for it to be a heart issue.
Absolutely. And so women tend to, especially women above the age of 65, tend to present with more so non-specific or vague symptoms compared to men. It could be just nausea, it could be just fatigue, sometimes it could be just a little chest discomfort or shoulder discomfort.
So really, if they're, consistently experiencing something that might seem like not a huge deal, but it's consistent, they should definitely go see a PCP and then probably get a referral to a cardiologist.
Absolutely, absolutely. We see this on a regular basis.
So one thing we're here to talk about, April is stress month. And while we're talking about heart issues, a lot of times stress, we just think about mental wellness. What do I do to control my stress? But really, it can have a negative effect on the heart and can kind of be an underlying factor that people don't really think of for heart disease.
Absolutely. So stress creates almost an inflammatory environment. And so in part of the process of developing blockages in the arteries is inflammation. And so stress can accelerate that process. Stress also increases your blood pressure, which puts you at further risk of heart problems or strokes or kidney problems. And also stress also increases risk of diabetes. So managing stress is of vital importance, when it comes to long-term cardiovascular care. Whatever the stress factor is, whether it's psychological, if it's pain, or if it's emotional, I think honing in on that and trying to treat that underlying factor will help reduce the cardiovascular risk factors long-term.
Right, and I know when we talk about stress, it can seem kind of mind-boggling to manage that, especially when you start thinking about the heart, because everybody experiences stress.
Absolutely.
Whether it's on a small scale with test taking, being in college, marriage, kids,
yes.
Everyone experiences that. So you're like, so I need to be concerned every day. No, I don't think. But if you're experiencing chronic stress, that's causing things like, chest tightness, chest pain. Obviously, that's when you probably need to start considering how to have some intervention to help deal with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, sometimes we do some patients that have profound anxiety that can present exactly like as if you're having, chest pain from your heart,
Right.
But it's just really anxiety. So that can be kind of difficult to tease out sometimes, but we see that quite often.
Yes, but so let's talk about how we can help manage stress when it comes to the heart. So can you talk about, overall health, but really when it comes to the heart, which is, the muscle of the body that keeps us going, sleep, exercise, everything that's the basis for heart health is also great for stress management.
Absolutely. So I would say one of the number one things is exercise, right? Exercise can lower your stress levels. It can lower your blood pressure. It helps with reducing stress levels, helps with improving, for example, depression. Exercise has so many health benefits. And then I always tell my patients, the older we get, quality of life becomes more important than longevity. And so you want to be able to function and do for yourself the older you get, and exercising, staying mobile really helps with that factor as well. Now, of course, the other parts of impacting, stress is whatever the underlying trigger is. If it's really emotional or if you're depressed, speaking to a psychologist or psychiatrist will help. And sometimes medications do help. So it really depends on what the underlying factor is. But I would hone in on exercise, number one. 2, psychological wellness, seeing a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Even your PCP will help. And then 3 is, let's say if the stress is from pain, a patient has cancer, they have chronic pain or chronic back pain. Seeing a pain specialist would help with that, reduce those stress levels, which improves cardiovascular care.
Right, and when it comes to, exercise and diet, I think a lot of people think like, I have to hit the ground running, like the 75 hard or whatever, but that isn't, typically true. You can start small and really, based off of what I've heard from other cardiologists, tell me if you agree that just a brisk 30-minute walk each day is really just getting your heart pumping, noticing that, oh, I'm doing extra work is really the goal.
Absolutely, absolutely. And getting into the habit. It's really easy to start to get a membership on January 1st, go to the gym and make the change. The hardest thing is maintaining it. Right. So we gotta be consistent.
And then when it comes to diet, just moderation.
Yeah.
Knowing that you don't have to live on a salad diet for the rest of your life. You can still enjoy, the foods that you've always enjoyed, but in moderation. Everything, absolutely. I think, in life, when it comes to spending our money, everything, moderation is key.
Absolutely.
Allowing yourself to live, but doing it in a safe way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even a glass of wine is okay. I tell my patients, like one or two glasses of wine is okay. have you seen some of these glasses of wine? They're this big, you know what I'm saying?
Huge
You said one
goblets.
glass. Moderation, everyone's definition of moderation might be a little different. But you're right, absolutely right. Everything in moderation is the key there. And that comes with behavioral and control and things like that.
One last thing I wanted to talk about is cortisol. I know that that's the stress hormone. Can you tell me how the chain reaction that it kind of creates in the body?
Yeah, so cortisol is one of those factors where when there's a stressful stimulant, okay, like I said, pain, emotional, psychological, the body just responds to stress kind of in a similar way, releases cortisol. And this cortisol can lead to increased anxiety, it can increase blood pressure, it could lead to disarray of glucose or blood sugar management. And just a cycle, and it can just facilitate all these other underlying health elements. It can worsen those. And so that's why I always say finding that trigger and treating that is really going to help kind of break that cycle and dampen down that cortisol response.
So to sum it all up, really exercise, eat healthy, and when you have stress, manage it properly.
Yes.
And if you need help, there's no
Yes.
shame in asking for help
No
from
shame.
your doctor, because one thing I've found in healthcare is it's all cyclical. If one thing, it's kind of like a domino effect. If you let one thing get out of control, then diabetes, then high blood pressure, and it's kind of all like a house. It stacks up on each other, which can, if you take care of the foundation,
Absolutely.
you're pretty set.
Very well put, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having
We're
me.
excited to have you here at Fairview, and
Absolutely.
I know you're doing great things here in Dublin for our patients and our community.
Absolutely, I do my best. Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Greg Carter with Shamrock Honda Kawasaki CF Moto. Come check out our full lineup of ATVs, side-by-sides, and motorcycles. We serve Dublin, Lawrence, and Central Georgia areas, and we'd love to serve you.
I'm Brian Bazemore, President and CEO of Community Bank of Dublin-Lawrence County. We would like to invite you to come by and experience a welcoming banking environment. Come by today and have a cup of coffee and let us talk with you about our many products, savings accounts, checking accounts, CDs, and our many loans. You're more than just a number to us, you're family. Come by today, Community Bank of Dublin-Lawrence County, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Hey everybody, we're back, and I'm Liz Coleman with Marketing and Communications here at Fairview Park Hospital, and we are excited to have Dr. Eric Chung with us. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So first off, tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to Fairview.
So it's been actually 2 years since I've been here, which is a great achievement for me personally. Being here in the last 2 years, I was brought in by our late Don Avery. He gave me a call and actually recruited me here. So since being here, I realized there's a great need for general surgery and also medical and surgical weight loss. So I already had a board in bariatric surgery, but I obtained a board in medical weight loss as well. And utilizing all of that, we've I think improved upon our existing bariatric center of excellence. We've had great doctors who've been here who set it up before me, so I just added to the piece.
So Dr. Chung is one of our general and bariatric surgeons. He's at Fairview Specialist General and Bariatric Surgery. So can you tell me a little bit about what medical weight loss is and what bariatric surgery is?
Sure. So I'm kind of in the mindset that it's a comprehensive care. So all of it kind of flows together, and you can always start off with just exercise and diet, which we can talk about, and then medications that help you do weight loss. And in cases where your weight needs to be fixed more aggressively or there's medical need for it, surgery comes into place. Now, just because you have surgery doesn't mean you don't need medications to help you lose weight. It all goes together, so I use every tool I have to help you have a healthy weight.
Okay. So we're here because April is National Stress Awareness Month, and as we know, we've already talked to Dr. Jenkins about how it affects the heart. Weight obviously affects the heart when you have excessive weight, but let's talk about how stress can affect weight gain. So I know that stress creates the output of cortisol. Can you explain how cortisol works in your body and how that affects weight gain?
So cortisol, which is what we call stress hormone, is a natural part of our body. We need a certain amount of it to keep us awake, to keep us alert, and keep us, be able to do our functioning job. But when you have too much of it, what it does is it overstimulates you. And you would think that just by having a lot of stress, you would burn all this fat or do all that stuff. But what really ends up happening is your body says, I need to protect myself. And it keeps all this sugar and glucose and releases it, and it maximizes how much energy you get from food. So you actually end up gaining weight when you're having high levels of stress constantly.
Gotcha. And, sometimes when you see people who are going through large amounts of stress, I feel like you either see two ways. Either they lose a lot of weight because they're so stressed they're not eating, but probably in America more times than not, they're overeating because cortisol plays into making you feel hungry when you actually aren't, and then not having coping mechanisms can lead to overeating.
Yeah. There's something to be said about eating, when we eat it, we feel comfort, right? And that's our Southern thing. So I'm from the South, and the way it works out is when we have it, it comforts us. So we use it as a mechanism to make ourselves feel better during times of stress. Usually stress is supposed to cause us to have a fight or flight response, and you actually get less hungry. But in order to make our cells better, to feel better, we overeat. And that kind of triggers a spiral where every time you're stressed, you eat, and then you just continue to gain weight, because in America, we have such good food. So the food we get makes us a lot more overweight.
Yeah. So I know the foundational, truths about heart health can also transfer over to, managing our weight. So when it comes to drinking ample amounts of water, that can make you feel full.
Yes.
That can, always ensure, am I thirsty or am I hungry? Yeah. Which one is it? And then exercise, a brisk 30-minute walk each day, sleep. Can you talk about some good practices to help maintain weight, especially when under stress?
Yeah. So the nice thing is it all goes hand in hand. Managing your stress, you can also manage your appetite as well. So you kind of channel all of that stress, reducing behaviors into exercise. So obviously exercising routinely releases dopamine. It also causes you to have less hunger when you're exercising. So your body can only do so many things at once. So when you exercise, guess what? How often are you feeling actively hungry when you're exercising? You're not, right? So it can delay your actual cues for hunger. Drinking a lot of water, it's very simple, but your stomach is kind of simple stupid. So when it gets full, it says, oh, whoa, I don't want any more food, even though it's just water. So drinking water can help you kind of trick it. And going back to some basic chemistry, water is actually a building block for creating energy. And having a lot of water makes it so that you don't need as much food usually.
So when we talk about stress, I know a lot of times we just think about managing it, and it can be, I said earlier, it can be kind of mind-boggling because we all have stress. It doesn't matter who you are, if you have kids, if you're married, if you're going through school, whatever it be at work, you're going to have stress. So you think, oh gosh, am I ever going to have an issue with this? But when you get to the point that you realize it is an issue, there should be no shame in reaching out to a physician, because like we mentioned earlier, it can lead to, mimicking heart conditions that you don't actually have, or it can lead to heart disease and weight gain. So can you talk about the things that you can do with your primary care physician or, a cardiologist or, weight loss physician?
So I think it's very important to understand that everybody's doesn't have the most peaceful life, and we have acute events that happen. So when something devastating does occur, that acute stress, it's important to know that seeking a primary care doctor or a psychiatrist or a therapist early on, you can help manage that acute event. So when something devastating happens, it can last you up to 6-7 months. So during that time, it's not a shameful thing to actually be on antidepressants or type of medications that help you feel stabilized, because not treating it, you can actually spiral out and have longer lasting impact on your life. So by treating it early on, you're doing a preventative thing to help your mind stabilize and also control your stress. And by that, you can actually control your weight as well.
And one thing I haven't thought about until now that I think is
really useful that you do in your program is if you do go through weight loss surgery, that obviously is a huge mental shift because you go from who you've always known yourself as to drastic weight loss, which is awesome. You know, a lot of people experience joy, but you also have to find a different mental space that you're going to live in. And so can you tell us about the mental support that y'all offer through the different services that come with your program?
Yeah. So every one of our patients that undergoes surgery actually see a therapist. And because of that, it's kind of important to know that during the whole process, you're going to become a completely different person. So I always encourage, look in the mirror every day, make sure you know, familiarize yourself with your new you. And during that process, if I feel that you're going to have extra support needs or something like that, I often refer back to our primary care doctors. But I'm not afraid to ask our bariatric psych doctors that we work with to reevaluate and make sure you're in a good headspace. Because all changes are not always good, and sometimes people may feel that even though they lost weight, they still feel overweight or they don't feel attractive or any of that stuff. So I always want to have an open dialogue with our psych colleagues as well.
So you would say you have a program that's pretty much all-encompassing.
Yes, we have a comprehensive bariatric program. That's what we have, yes.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us today. Again, thank you to Dr. Jenkins and Dr. Chung. I think something we've all learned today is that the foundational truths for health overall really do still adhere to heart health and when it comes to weight gain or weight loss. So if you need any help, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Chung's office. We'll have the contact information here, and we're happy to serve this community and be here in any case, any need.
Yeah, thank you for having me.